Joining us, of course, is a man who's no stranger to the Observer. Let me say a special good evening to Naparima MP and UNC Shadow Minister of National Security and Foreign Affairs, Mr. Rodney Charles. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Pleasant good evening.
Yes, I hope you had a safe carnival.
Pleasant good evening to you. A safe.
Rodney, you're breaking up a bit there. I don't know if you're not stable or.
If I could get a better spot. Are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Oh. All right.
All right. Your Master Control, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Let's straighten this out.
The Excel brand delivers quality service.
I would recommend Omega Excel to everyone.
Take care of yourself, take care of your health with Omega Excel.
If Omega Excel works for me, it will work for you.
Over a period of time, I started feeling stronger in my knees where I could add more pressure.
Looking for top quality and affordable hardware supplies? Then look no further than Midland Hardware, number 97 Eastern Main Road, Aruca. We stock a wide range of tools, water tanks, blocks, lumber, steel, and everything you need for your home and business project. Check out our new display of steel windows.
Thank you so much, Master Control, and thank you so much for getting that kink out. Once again, pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Charles.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to your leaders, your listeners.
Hope you had a safe carnival. Everything was okay?
Yeah, safe. I stayed at home, family. Get together, very quiet. But I looked at everything on TV.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good. Well, big days coming up. Debate on the base erosion and profit sharing, which is shortly BEPS. It's the bill first in the Senate, listed next Tuesday. And it's a 4-year-long overdue bid to get us off the EU blacklist. Now, we hear so much about this blacklist, that we're trying to get off of. Just for listeners, please explain to us just how beneficial is it when you are off of this list, and what does it hinder you from engaging in?
Right. The fact that we have been off the EU blacklist since 2016, and it is testimony to the laziness and sloth of this government. The EU is a large trading bloc, and what they are saying is that if you want to trade with the EU, you must put in place systems to ensure that companies that are European companies in Trinidad and other parts of the world do not engage in money laundering, in putting money, financing of terrorism, and in ensuring and tax evasion. So basically, they do not want a European company to come to Trinidad and use Trinidad as an opportunity to evade taxes in Europe. So they're trying to level the playing field by saying companies all over the world who are dealing with Europe, and the US has the same thing too. Dealing with these major economies, you have to be above board. The companies must be not involved in tax evasion. Companies must not involve itself in financing of terrorism and money laundering. So essentially, to trade with them, we have to agree to play by those rules.
And according to ECLAC report in 2021, this country lost almost $18 billion in revenues from LNG due to transfer pricing between 2010 and 2018. And the BEPS laws would have corrected this, basically.
Corrected that, because what the BEPS laws talk about is what they call base erosion and profit sharing. If I have multinationals, I have companies all over the world, right? Let's say Shell, and I'm not casting aspersions on Shell. I'm just using them as an example. Shell has a company in the Cayman Islands where there are no taxes. What that company will do will take natural gas from Trinidad, sell it to a Shell company in the Cayman Islands at a reduced price. So if the price is, let's say, $2 per per million MT, simple. Well, let's take another example. We're talking about gold.
Right.
And gold is, let's say $600 per ounce. And they're getting gold in Trinidad. They take that gold, sell it to the dummy company, which is an extension of the multinational, sell it at $200, right? So when they come to declare profits in Trinidad, they're declaring profits at $200 per ounce of gold instead of $800 or $900, whatever is the market price. So they shift profits to areas, to countries where there are low taxes, they call them tax havens, and do not pay the correct tax in the country that they're supposed to. So that is what they call profit shifting and base erosion. The base price of the LNG in Trinidad, the base price is sold to a company, another subsidiary, a branch of the same multinational at a reduced price. So when they come to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, instead of paying on the market price, they pay on the price that they sell it to the subsidiary, which is less, and therefore we get less taxes in Trinidad. And that essentially is what BEPS is supposed to do, to ensure that for the LNG and for the oil that we produce, the companies give us the correct, declare the correct profits and pay the correct corporation tax. So just imagine, we lost $18 billion. ECLAC is the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And what that is saying, we lost $18 billion in revenues from LNG because companies use this loophole to ship it to subsidiaries at reduced prices. So when they come to declare their profits in Trinidad and pay corporation taxes and other taxes, they pay it at reduced levels.
Yeah, well, and that's the point there. I think that people, that raises the red flag, because if this framework, this legislation is so important, why would the government drag its feet on it? Basically, the EU is saying we want transparency, we want accountability. If I'm not mistaken,
correct,
right? That's what they're asking for.
Correct.
Why simply can we not comply with that? Is it then, and I want to put you in a hot position here, is it then that some group or some individuals are benefiting from the fact that this legislation's framework has not been cemented or implemented strongly?
Well, it leads us to all kinds of conspiracy theories. And it is possible that somebody is benefited or may be benefited from the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is being deprived of revenues because we failed to pass the legislation. What is sad about this is that in 2017, Finance Minister Colmenberg wrote the EU promising to pass 5 pieces of legislation, including BEPS, to ensure that we be removed from its blacklist. So in November 17, he said that by 2019, we would have passed the legislation. And we are now in 2024, and we are now bringing it to the Senate. Something is amiss, something is shameful, something is disgraceful, right? Because when you think we have lost $18 billion only on LNG, what about ammonia, where all the companies in Point Lisas are able to use this loophole in order to declare less profits in Trinidad, and therefore the tax revenues in Trinidad are being deprived? If on LNG alone we have lost $18 billion, then government could have used that to advance our development. Why are we paying property tax when the government has revenues available to it, which it is not taking advantage of because it is lazy and slothful to pass the BEPS legislation?
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Mr. Charles. Then whose job is it to police what's happening here? Or is it just the fact that it's a situation where no one can ask for checks and balances, no one can ask for clarity or hold anyone accountable for it because of this framework of legislation that is not in place? I mean, somebody has to say, listen, if this is being siphoned off to certain companies where certain individuals are benefiting, whose job is it to police that, to ensure that our money as Trinbagonians are not being put to benefit some group, basically?
Well, I would hate to think that we have people in governance in Trinidad and Tobago that clearly seeing opportunities for the government to get revenues. Where the EU, in fact, we have to rely on the EU because in Parliament, we had a joint select committee to fast track all these legislations to get us off the blacklist. And I asked Minister Imbert, the finance minister, tell us all that is necessary, all the legislation that is necessary for us to come off the blacklist. He listed these 5. And we thought that by 2019, 2020, we would have had the BEPS legislation. Only to anytime you ask, they say that the government is the EU is shifting the goalposts. But that is not the truth, because Barbados was told at the same time about the BEPS legislation. St. Vincent was told, Grenada was told, the Cayman Islands was told, St. Lucia was told. All of them complied. All of them complied, except my government. Now, what it is that Barbados, what it is Mia Motley knows, her government knows, that Trinidad and Tobago does not know. Is it that they have better, brighter technocrats in their Ministry of Finance? If so, well, let us be honest. Let us go to Barbados and Grenada and say, help us get off the EU blacklist. Because it seems as if we are unwilling or unable to do what is necessary to get off the list. And I put this down to laziness, I put this down to incompetence, and I put this down to shameful slothfulness. Yeah, I would not allow Barbados to be able to come off an EU blacklist because they're able to pass the base erosion and profit sharing tax since 2017. That is the time that our minister wrote the EU and said we will have it by 2019. Barbados passed it in 2017. You know what? Grenada in 2016.
And you're right about
this. We're in 2024, for heaven's sake. Somebody needs to ask, the media needs to ask Minister Imbert why we are not able to come off the EU blacklist.
Mr. Charles, these questions are not being asked by mainstream media, and I mean people have been very upset about this. And you're right, Barbados in 2017, you spoke about St. Lucia, 2018, Cayman Islands, 2019, Grenada, 2016. Bear in mind that these are not oil-producing countries. So again, why? Why would we just simply sit idly by 18 billion plus, and I'm sure that figure has gone up by now, where we have lost out on revenues? You spoke about the LNG and as well as other petrochemical companies that may be finding something through these loopholes. Again, whose job is it then?
The guesstimate is that we have lost $40 billion. Think about think about the government forcing us to pay property tax to raise 2 or 3 billion. When they have 40 billion that they are allowing the multinationals to get away with in Trinidad and Tobago at this time. And that is not all, because what the government does is give, in terms of interest on taxes, they give amnesties. So these big companies rush and take advantage of those amnesties and forego interest on late payments of taxes. So it is Trinidad has been raped by the multinationals.
Now, in your release, you also spoke about there are concerns about the neo-colonial implications of the EU and other blacklists. But the EU and the US are important trading entities with which we must do business, and yet still we ignore them at our own peril. Now that's something that, when you look at it, why would we risk something so important? And also, why would we even not try to get this thing on track and do it in order for us to save our revenue and use our revenue, as you mentioned, the property tax and all of that? I mean, this is a go-over season. Understand something here. We are talking about coming out of COVID. We're talking about 5,000 plus retail stores. We're talking about an economy that is way past stagnation, all of that. When you talk about what went on for Christmas and the fact that there's a lack of consumer confidence, the fact that the middle class, according to many of the economists here, that have been wiped out, why then are we playing a game which deals with the fact of ensuring that our people get the best standard of living, as well as why do we risk getting a geopolitical black eye from some of the people that are our main traders?
It hurts that, and all of us are Trinidadians, all of us are patriots. All of us want to do what is right. But it seems as if we have to depend on the former colonial masters to force us to do what we ought to be doing for ourselves. Why should we be involved in tax evasion with multinational corporations? Why should we be facilitating that? And let us be clear about this. I do not like the fact that multinationals are dictating to us when we are supposed to be independent countries. I think the Minister of Finance said in Parliament that how we are going to the United Nations to say that the former colonial masters should not be imposing these kinds of onerous requirements on our countries. But the fact is, we have to be clear in our mind. Okay, we do not like the former colonial masters to be dictating to us. But we have to do what we have to do to be strong enough to look them in the eye and say, we are better than you. We are more transparent than you. We are not involved in tax evasion. Let me tell you something. There are two countries in Europe, Denmark and Norway, right? The Minister of Trade of Denmark called the government of Trinidad and Tobago a nook of shame for money laundering and tax evasion. And they stopped their double tax treaty arrangement with Trinidad and Tobago. They canceled it. They wanted to have nothing to do with Trinidad and Tobago. That's Denmark. And that's a fact. And every time I raise it in Parliament, the minister pretends he doesn't hear it. That the Minister of Trade for Denmark, a former minister, about 2 years ago, looked at Trinidad government and he called us a nook of shame and embarrassment in the global diplomacy. That's what he called my country, and we didn't have the testicular fortitude to stand up to him and say, give us the facts. Now, why you call us that? Oh, apologize. You know why we couldn't do that? Because we have been lazy and slothful in passing the required legislation to make us transparent,
All right.
cut out tax evasion and money laundering.
And let me ask you this now, Mr. Charles. Why is it a priority now? Why now?
Because we are due for a peer review with Global Forum in 2024, in June 2024, right? So because we are required to go for a peer review, the government is rushing now to pass this legislation, unmindful of the fact that the EU is smarter than us. They know we pass legislation but do not enforce it, right? And therefore they want to see not only that we pass the legislation, but that we operationalize it, that we have a ministry, we have a policing of those who are involved in tax evasion, that we enforce the BEPS on multinationals in Trinidad and Tobago. They want to see it, not passing legislation, which Minister Imbut thinks he will do and try a fast one on the EU.
All right.
It is a disgrace.
Well, it adds up. And I mean, that's it. Let's break it down here to the lowest common denominator. Basically, we have simply laid back, very relaxed on this entire issue. Somebody was benefiting. Somebody had to be benefiting. I just simply can't take the fact that knowing that we've lost all this revenue in this global guava season, somebody had to be benefiting. Now,
People are just lazy and don't care.
well, now that someone is saying, let me see your books. Now that someone is saying we are here to monitor this situation, not only monitor, but we want to see your books because for some reason you are not complying. Now that they're coming in to look at it, we are saying, you know what, this legislation is priority number one. We have to get it in place and we have to get it done. I mean, in all fairness, it simply doesn't add up. And yes, I believe that there's some laziness. I believe there's some incompetence. But at the same time, I also believe that we are living in a country where many of these red flags come up because somewhere along the line, these things were done deliberately because a certain group of people are benefiting. And I think that's what we need to put it aside. Someone is benefiting.
I think you're hitting at something. We need to ask the government clearly, are you turning a blind eye because you are part of the scheme, right, to enrich these companies for kickbacks? Somebody has to ask the government that. And the government has to say, no, we are not doing that because A, B, C, D, and E. Because even an EU minister could speak disparagingly of my government. When you read this release, which will not be published in the media, when you read this release, you see the only reason why the minister Imbert is rushing to the Senate next week, Tuesday, is because there's a peer review by EU in the first quarter of this year, that's January, February, March, right? So by March, if he doesn't get his act together, right, we will be further, we will continue to be on the EU blacklist. So why we have to wait on a foreign government to force us to act? What it is, Barbados, if Grenada could do this in 2016, little Grenada,
Yeah.
why, I mean, it's legislation standard. We could take Grenada's legislation and pass it in Trinidad with minor amendments.
Yeah.
Because if they were passed in Grenada, what it is, we have multinationals. Grenada has multinationals too in the tourism industry. They have companies in Grenada that are involved in the hotel industry and whatnot that are multinationals.
And
so the same things apply to them. Barbados, more than us.
and that's the
Because
problem.
Barbados is a financial center, a hub for many global industries. And what it is that Barbados has, that Colmenbert and the technocrats in Trinidad do not have.
Well,
do not
based
understand,
based on the fact of the operation, they simply have nothing to hide. That's what they have. They have nothing to hide. Grenada, Barbados, the Cayman Islands, St. Lucia, all of these countries basically have nothing to hide. Then again, what is Trinidad and Tobago hiding? And why now? Why is this such a priority? I want to thank you so much for taking time out to enlighten us, to tell us about this. And trust me, I know there are people who are sitting down at home and saying, listen, the middle class has been wiped out. Whatever little nest egg I had, whatever I saved to send Johnny or Susie so they can get some sort of education in university, all of that is gone. And here it is today. I'm hearing that this country, the country that we live in, and we are catching our aunt, uncle, Nenin, money is just simply hemorrhaging, and nobody's going to be held accountable. Only when it's convenient to put our ducks in a row because somebody, Big Brother or the colonial master, is saying, hey, I want to see your books. Now, does that make sense?
It does not make sense. And I cannot understand.
Yeah.
As a patriot in Trinidad and Tobago, somebody who worked in the UN, when you stand up and we are as bright as them. We are capable of them. But what it is in this P&M government that they wait till the last minute, they do not do anything, they sit down lazy, and then we find ourselves, one of these days, we will find ourselves blacklisted to the extent that they will stop trading with us.
Yeah. And you know something? And the people who have lined their pockets with our money, they could care less because they simply move on and they simply continue business as usual while we suffer. This brings us, I want to thank you so much again, Mr. Charles, for enlightening us, and keep up the good work. Best of luck to you and your entire team, and we'll be checking in with you periodically.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
All the best.
Okay.